You remember from the morning we discussed about the human factor in DevOps and the fact that the healthy, agile and DevOps culture is source of success for many organizations because the tools have been taken care of. That culture part also includes an aspect of diversity, defined as to think and understand people that are different than I am. We have an opportunity to have a personal perspective on diversity, and I have an honor to introduce Kohsuke Kawaguchi, KK, on stage. Many people know KK from Jenkins project and many other CI/CD related projects and tools. Now, KK is back with us to give a story on his personal experience that helped him develop new perspectives on the issue around diversity. And there is this aspect that I am looking forward to unpack to more clearly see why it's in our business interest to tackle the questions around diversity. How are you today, Kohsuke?
Hello, good morning. I'm doing great. Hey. All right, thanks for the opportunity. So today, I want to talk about how awesome Jenkins is for doing CI/CD and how Launchable can help you solve the test problem or not. Probably in this audience, I'm better known. I'm usually known to talk about this, DevOps topics, but this talk is a little different. Because I am not a minority, at least here in the Bay Area. Right. I'm in California. I'm an immigrant, just like most other people in the area is. I have a daughter. My mother was a working mother. She had a full-time job, became a kind of pretty big shot. So when it comes to this cause of, diversity and so on, I thought, I was with the cause. Right? I'm like a left-leaning liberal living in the liberal hippie land of California. What else I'd expect? And if anything, I felt like I also know a little bit about, the being on the minority side. So, one of my hobby is cross-stitching, which is not a usual hobby for a man. It's usually associated with the old white lady retired, having a good time in the chit-chatting with each other. So there was this one time I went to a needle shop in the basic hour away from where I live. Because it's not usual to find these places I wanted to check out. So I went into the store, and the store master was, I think, a white lady in the 60s. There was a big table, lots of other white women are sort of having nice conversations on Sunday and doing the cross stitching. And the moment I went in, I felt like I'm already like a animal in the zoo because it's so clearly I did not belong there. And they didn't understand, I did the cross-stitching. They thought I was doing, looking up something for my wife. So I just, browsed the place a little bit and then walked out, and I never went back. So, it's not that they are hostile. They're really, in fact, trying to be friendly. But it's just this overwhelming sense that, I do not belong here was a pretty big hurdle to sort of overcome. So, so that I thought that was an interesting experience. That must be how it's looking like, when you're a minority in any community, really. So now, speaking of a community, I was deeply involved in this community called Jenkins. And what makes that great is, extensibility, right? This idea that everybody from anywhere in the world can come in and create some interesting stuff. I fundamentally believe in innovation happening everywhere. Kelsey Hightower was just talking about, this a Kubernetes ecosystem. It's the same idea. And then that was, I thought that is fundamentally backed by the diversity, not in the kind that they talked about in politics, like race or the ethnicity, etc. But what we do in the software industry is incredibly diverse. So when different people from different corners do things differently, and then they can bring that perspective into the project, it really benefits. So all that is to say, I thought I was with the cause of the diversity. I was a champion, a supporter of it. And then another interesting thing happened. So, I was at Cloudbeats, the company that's investing a big in Jenkins project. We had a number of people hired from the community. And then I ran a small team called the community team. So this team was focused on growing the community, contributor base, and generally prop up the project. So, as a part of the effort, I brought in Tracy. She was, back then she was, I think she was living in the UK. She was a passionate advocate of diversity. In the Eclipse Foundation. And then so, we expected her to kind of champion the same cause, even after she joined the Jenkins project and Cloudbeats. So, I was in the planning meeting. So we are getting together and then trying to figure out what is the important goals for this community team to drive in the next year. She was, as I expected, pitching for some diversity-related projects. But, to my surprise, I find myself unconvinced of those arguments. Just to make sure, it's not that those are not the good thing. They're obviously a good thing. The struggle that I had is or the question that I had is, is that better than all the other good things that we also wanted to do? Say improving the documentations, the usability, there's any number of things. Any team anywhere in the world has more things they want to do than they can do. Right? So the hard questions becomes the prioritizations. I think, and no disrespect to Tracy, but I did feel like the pitch was a little weak. The argument that why she thought that should be a priority was a little bit weak, and it kind of reminded me of, engineers arguing for why the refactoring needs to happen on this particular code base now. Right? When somebody who already knows and believes in the code is arguing, the argument sometimes just doesn't stick. And that really hurt me because I felt like now I was a part of the problem. Or better yet, I kind of finally understood what the problem is. It's not so much that the people are actively against the cause, whatever cause. It's just that they do not see enough of the merits so that the cause would win the priority war. Because the business, when we are operating in a business context, we have to make money, all that. So, just because something is good is not good enough. So that really kind of sent me down in this a bit of a soul searching. The way I saw it, either I need to internalize internalize the business value of the diversity efforts, so that I can accept and justify that, and I can even pitch to my boss, because after all, I'm accountable for him. And I think there's, that makes sense, right? Diversity, just because it's a good thing, shouldn't get a free pass. I'm still answerable to my CEO. He pays for all the people, including me. And so we need to produce some output. And then this needs to be a part of that goal. Or I need to accept that I'm not with the cause, right? I need to stop pretending I'm the supporter of the cause, but I'm just a part of the indifferent system that kind of gets in the way. So that was, for me, that was a really tough thing to confront. But there are a couple of things I kind of ran into which really helped me develop a new perspective. So I'm very grateful for that. This was one story that was with the lady called Arlene Hamilton, and I ran into this in a podcast. So she's a woman trying to start a new venture capital firm. You see, every venture capital firm has what they call this investment hypothesis. So it's their bet, right? They have this hypothesis about the world or technology or whatever, and they use that to judge which things to invest in. So for her, it basically boils down to this. The facts and the data on the ground that tell you that the investment in the tech scene is lopsided into the so-called establishment, like white young dudes, basically, right? And then that's just that's just a fact, like whether you like it or not. And her hypothesis is that what makes the entrepreneur successful, like the grit or the perseverance and those qualities, are in fact evenly spread. So it's not just uniquely concentrated into, let's say, a white young dude. And that also seems like a very reasonable hypothesis. Like we have no reason to expect that just because my skin is a little yellower, like I'll be like a less or more qualified. So, like what that tells if you combine that fact and what appears to be a very reasonable hypothesis, what you can say, like the conclusion that you can derive from here is that a certain segment of the market, in other words, like some segment of the people who are trying to create business, is currently underserved by the VCs. And then so she saw that she saw it as a source of frustration, but she also actually saw it as a business opportunity because there is an undertapped market here. Like there's a less competition there. So if I invest in these guys, then I can more likely produce better returns. So that was amazing. I thought that story, like that she doesn't just see it as a social good, but the active means of profit seeking, makes it really powerful tool to create a larger effort in the context of capitalist society. And it also parallels very nicely with her own struggle. She herself is not an insider. So the thing that we might not think about is that in order to become a VC, you actually need to raise money from the institutional investors so that they trust their hard-earned money in you and expect a return back. So she's a Black, and she's a lesbian, and she's a woman. So when it comes to the three major diversity angles, she's like a triple minority. Like she cannot get any minor than that in the society of the venture capital firms, which is by far dominated again by like a white old man, because they have a network and connection and everything. So this podcast goes through this amazing story of her basically broke, and she had to sleep in the couch of the San Francisco airport to secure some meetings here and there. So this attitude that whenever there is this the inefficiency in the market, if I intentionally choose to use like a economic terms, like inefficiency, if there's some discrimination, let's say, then you can actually bring a market-driven approach to fairness. So that was for me eye-opening, I thought. And then so the a line that she says that really crystallized the thought, she refuses to use the word underrepresented, and she sees them as underestimated. And then so that's a very powerful statement, the show of the confidence that we can do it just so long as the adequate resources provided. So that gave me new perspective. Now, another story that I've heard around the same time, this is also on the podcast. So as you can see, I really enjoy listening to podcasts. But it's called the curve cutting effect. And I don't know if you ever heard of it, but So the idea of the curve cutting effect is this. So back in the 70s in the Berkeley, which is another very hippie city in California, not too far away from where I live, the series of a number of the people in the wheelchair was lobbying for the government that the curve, the places you walk on the street, and then there's a gap from that, into the part of the street where the cars move, right? Usually there's a gutter, so there's like a steep, not too tall, but the steep wall. So it gets in the way of wheelchairs moving around. So these guys are trying to lobby the city government that the curve should be cut, and it should create a slope so that they can go down. So the long story short, the Berkeley government, city government actually did it. So they cut the curve and created a slope. And what they discovered was that it obviously helped the people in the wheelchair, but it also benefited a whole bunch of other people, like the businessmen with the suitcase, or the mothers with the strollers, or delivery men with the carts trying to haul things around. Right? It turns out that all these people were also benefiting from the slope. And it's just that these people never complained as vocally as wheelchair people because, for them, the annoyance was minor. But because they are much larger in numbers, like it created this long tail of benefit. So if you're a city government, you only hear from this super small, small enough minority that is the wheelchair people. So if you're only thinking about the benefit this provides to them, it might not feel all that much. But if you think about all the other long tails, the benefit that comes out from effort like that is actually pretty substantial. So, so that's an interesting perspective because, again, when you think about taking on a diversity effort, let's say women in tech, my first reaction was okay, I'd be only thinking about, all right, we're gonna just bring in a few new contributors and do some supporting to them. So we're talking about 3 or 4 contributors for the whole effort of doing this. That might not feel that much, right? But what actually happens is when after you help those the trailblazer, the path that they created would benefit number of other people. So if you think about all that benefit, now the calculations start to feel very different. So those 2 things really help me sort of start to see things differently. And I started seeing it more more like this. So imagine if you're opening a new bar, right, in a new town, let's say Copenhagen. It's a beautiful place. I'd love to be able to visit again. So you build a bar you like, and stuff is the alcohol of your choice, and then you hang the open sign, and then you wait for people to show up, right? And then some people would stroll in, and they have interactions with them. And in that process, your regulars start to give you the feedback, and then you try to react to it, and then that creates this symbiotic process of improvement. And then the bar becomes prosperous, and then your things are going great, right? But then this is kind of just the open source project is. But at some point, this kind of growth, this kind of organic growth will plateau because you're self-selecting your customer base. Because you're only listening to people who are already at your bar, so you're making things better for them. But at some point, in order to ignite the next growth, you need to do something else. Yeah. So that something else is to reach out and to go out. So what you do is to go out on the street that your bar is at, and then try to see who are people that's not coming to your bar, not the people who are already there. Because and then think about what does it take to get these people into your bar? So maybe you notice that there are a lot of Hispanic people walking around. In which case, perhaps the right thing to do is to have a menu in Spanish, or they try to have a picture in the menu, and you repeat the cycle to win more customers. Right. Now, if you think about it that way, it's kind of it is actually very obvious to the point of it's almost boring. You just don't sit and wait. Right? You actively go out and seek out and try to recruit different people. In other words, you reach out. And in marketing, for example, they do this all the time. Right? The people, marketing people are not selling to the marketing people. Right? They sort of they understand, they research who they are trying to appeal to, what they care about, and they craft a message, and they create a hospitable place or message for them. But when it comes to open source projects, suddenly, I think the most people are still in this, open a bar and they wait for the people to show up and help them mode. This mindset of, okay, we actually need to go seek out the contributors is not really in the mind for most people. So that's kind of, I was like, oh, okay. So diversity wasn't a political correctness thing. It's actually a very sensible, ordinary economic activities that a lot of people do. I just need to, bring the same practice here. But to be fair, the reason people don't do it is in some sense it's hard. It's hard to think and understand people who are different, who you do not see, right? So as a developer in open source project, it's kind of natural that we think about, okay, we just need to appeal to people like us. And then, because if you don't see what other people's are, like, how can you possibly do that? How can you possibly reach them? And, when I saw it like that, I actually, I actually saw my own very personal frustration and experience. Right. So I grew up in Tokyo, and in Japan, there's a very large, thriving software, the tech scene. It's, after all, what is still like a number 3 or 5 or whatever GDP in the world. But like, if you look at the, say, tech industry, you probably don't know any Japanese people. Maybe the guy who invented Ruby, but I bet you cannot name 5 people. And that's because, the Asians, over the East Asians, are not a part of this community. So you simply do not see them. And then so it never occurs to people to outreach, reach out to those people or try to include them in the community. So, there's some reason for that, like a language fluency, time zone barriers. So when on the few occasions that open source projects try to meet, have a synchronous meeting, they pick a time zone that, really is hard for Asians. And then so they don't show up. And then so the people think, see, the logical time slot to have a meeting is for the one that covers the, US and Europe, because they are contributors are. It creates this vicious cycle. Again, speaks to the volume, the point about why it's so difficult to reach out to the people you do not see. The one time there's this was back in the day of Java's heydays, where there's a lot of competing dependency injection frameworks, and of course, in Japan there was a whole open source foundations, and the founders is a whole bunch of sub projects, that was creating their own dependency DI system. And one year he wanted to, basically, he came to the US and spoke in Java 1, tried to present his, foundation and project and all the ecosystems. But, because the conference organizers have never heard of that framework, never heard of him. So he only got a small birds of a feather sessions. And because nobody had heard of it, he only had a handful of attendees. And that was really super discouraging for him. And he never came back to, present in the US. He basically gave up any attempt to try to bridge those 2 communities. And for me, that was a kind of disappointing, sad story. And yet, I knew this, that you can, there are indeed some communities that you do not see. And then a few years ago, I also had the other experience, at the Jenkins project. I always wondered, there was nobody joining the project from the China, basically. And then, but there's a precious few guys, and then so through their invite, I went to, I think, in Beijing or Shanghai, and presented in a conference, not really just because I kind of wanted to visit China, to be honest. And I was blown away by the scale of the software development that was going on, the kind of topics that they were discussing in that tech conference, aside from the fact that they use a language that we do not understand. This level of sophistication from the scale of the problem, they were comparable to that was in the US. So, I got shocked, whoa, wait a minute, what if, why, and I was talking to these people, why are you not, you're clearly using Jenkins a lot, you have a line of people wanted to sign books and whatnot. So I was asking, so why, how come you're not showing up on your community? Clearly you're using it so much, and we want you to be joining this community. And they said, well, Mr. Kawaguchi, do you know where your community is? Yeah, it's on Google Groups. And have you ever heard of this Chinese firewall? We can't get onto the Google Groups. And I was oh, okay, well, that's true. Well, but you could have told us we have also a Twitter account, and those are the kind of things you can connect to Twitter as well. And then said, well, the same firewall, it doesn't let us talk in Twitter as well. So, it's it made sense. Like what I learned from it is that, well, like even though, well, okay, even when you have the idea that there are communities that you do not see, it's still hard to actually, to truly understand it. But once you get there, and then you sort of like, well, in this case, literally get there, and then you talk to the people who you're not currently joining this, then often the problems that they point out is, it's not a rocket science. And then after all, the engineering is all about solving the problems, right? So long as you can kind of see clearly picture what problem is blocking them, then you can go out and work out and try to solve those. So that's nothing really different from how like engineers do day in, day out. It's just like trying to solve a little different kind of problem, but that's it. And then if you keep repeating that cycle, then you can sort of through let's say the curve cutting effect, like not only the thing that we do to make the access convenient for the Chinese community, it's going to bring the other community that's also like a disconnected, let's say, through the language barrier, and so on and so forth. So that was that gave me again sort of like another perspective change that. Oh, like all I need to do. Well, okay, I'm just always simplifying, but all I need to do is basically just do the engineering, and I started realizing like a lot of other things really kind of fit the same pattern. So but it's just that it was right in front of my eyes, but I didn't connect those dots or I didn't see them. And so, this was further back in the days of the early days of the Jenkins project when we started the company CloudBees. So, one thing we wanted to do is to bring the people who are good at organizing events into the community, right? Because we wanted to have user conferences. So, this. Now you have to understand, like by this point, the Jenkins project was big, but it was basically just full of developers. So this new group of people, well, I'm specifically thinking one person, one lady. She had to, she had to be a trailblazer. And back then, our mindset is okay. This is a marketing lady. She doesn't know anything about the open source or how this community works. So we need to educate her. We need to teach her how the open source project work and how people behave, so that she can navigate this unfamiliar water better, right? So we did help her in that regard, and like I'm not saying that was bad, but now looking back, I can see like I was missing the other key learning opportunity, which is that the project could have learned a lot from seeing this trailblazer struggle, right? So let's say a great example might be, so how do you get more influential in the open source project? Well, like we like to be proud that it's a meritocracy, meaning, you have to, as you write more, meaningful code and impactful, the code, you get more credibility, which we often talk about in proud voice. But if you think about it, by definition, that excludes everybody who's going to contribute to the project in anything other than writing code. So it turns out that is actually a pretty exclusive mechanism that kind of gets in the way of growing the project at some point. So, so we have to fix those things. Like we have to build a little bit of structures and titles and teams and officers and so on, so that she can get the credibility in some other means for the contribution that she's doing in the project, just not through the code. And as it turns out that when we did that, the other kind of people were able to come in, the designers, the operations people, these other people that we added from the CloudBees into the project, they were able to benefit from this newly paved road so that they don't have to go through the same suffering. So, I think in the end we did all right, but I felt like, okay, so that was the part of the point of, try to bring on this early trailblazer is not just that, they be successful, like we obviously did for that, but so that we can learn. It's kind of like a beta tester. These people are trying to, by design, trying to hit snafu. And then we want them to tell us okay, where they struggled. and so that we can fix those, and just like bugs. But in her case, neither she nor us had that view. So it basically felt like she had to work harder, superhuman hard, so that she does, she keeps up to what she's expected. And another similar story in this capacity is perhaps there was it is a company that you might heard of. It's from Copenhagen. It's called Pragma. Back then, there used to be a small company called Pragma that got bought by Eficode. Back then, they were very active in this project, in the Jenkins project. One thing led to another. We started working on what eventually became a pretty important project in the Jenkins. It's called Jenkins Configurations Code. There's the Evelina, who is working at Pragma back then, was quickly rising in her influence through that work. But she was also kind of not a usual open source contributor type, right? She wasn't a lone hacker who came up with this on her own. So what happens next, I can't take no credit because this happens, but this happens more or less without my involvement. But as I understand, she needed a little encouragement from the Jenkins governance board member, but she eventually ran for the board seat and then got into that position, and she made even more bigger impact in the project. So I think that's those so that's another trailblazer. Who needed a little bit of encouragement, like I would have needed in that needle shop in California. But once you're given an opportunity like that, then you really flourish. And when other people see that, then it creates a lot of it removes this sense of I'm an animal in the zoo cage, and it creates more opportunity for other people to join. And because, and that's kind of how the project grows, right? And because my experience of going through this was so intertwined with the Jenkins project, as you can see, I'm really glad that the Jenkins project kind of also, they internalized this same idea. And then to the point that something like the Evelina story, the Pragma story could happen on its own. That I thought was truly wonderful. So that's part of the reason why I felt like, okay, I could step back and away from Jenkins project. It knows how to incorporate in the newer views and kind of thrive and evolve on its own. So, this, so I guess kind of key takeaway or the message that I wanted to pass here is often, people, so when it comes to a point of diversity, it's often very easy to think about the very specific axis of diversity, race and gender and religion and so on. And while those are obviously big and important, those are things that get talked about, but it's really more, in my mind, it's more generic. There's so many more axes that's in a particular specific domain, let's say in the technology domain, the job professions, these things are just as important in diversity. And then so it's not about the overcoming those specific axes, but it's actually more a general problem. And, again, we the engineers are good at generalizing the problem and solving the class of general problem, right? It's about, the motion of reaching out and then to the underserved, and then, fixing the obstacle for them, and then try to, pull them into the circle. And then this, that motion never really stops, right? You just keep working on it, one area at a time. So for me, the idea of diversity evolved into this never-ending motion. So that's, what I wanted to talk about today. And I'm still continuing on this journey. So, hopefully in a few years I come back to talk about how my thoughts have evolved in that point. But anyway, thank you very much for the opportunity. Back to you.
Thank you, Kohsuke. I acknowledge that it's a courageous act for you to come on this stage to talk about this subject as a public figure in the technology space, and it's definitely not an easy subject. So I commend you for taking the time to share us your story.
Thank
We
you.
have, there's one question. What actions can organizations or even individuals take to help with promoting diversity in the workplace?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, for me, like, I guess I did. I mean, I think for me, it kind of became mundane things. So like identifying a new segment you want to reach out and like try to think about motion to reach out, and what you do is very specific. So I guess in your case, like in the Jenkins project, the Google Summer of Code project, that's great. Women in Code, that's great. So there are these specific initiatives that the Tracy wrote. So in some sense, like all I had to do was kind of get behind her. So, but yeah. So sorry, I don't really have a great answer there.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's just it's. I mean, it's quite a key topic, isn't it? And we all talk about it, and then but quite often it's like, okay, what can I do? I mean, I'm sitting in my position. I want to encourage people. From, as I said, diversity is not just race or gender, etc. So I do want to be encouraging and without being patronizing as well. So that's kind of why I asked the question in terms of potentially.
Yeah, actually, one thing I thought about is I think the being humble is helpful. That is, like you need to accept that there are things that you don't see, and then so like when the Tracy was arguing that look, there's it'd be great to bring this like a tap into this segment, and like in my experience, they never panned out. Right, so I could have easily said, well, that's not going to work out. But like you kind of have to trust that, okay, there are things I do not see, and then she is clearly seeing it. So if I trust her, then like it might be worthwhile. And then I feel like if you're lacking that basic humility, like the world is everything that you see and nothing more, then there's that from that kind of thinking, like you're never interested in reaching out.
Yeah, as long as you're open.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is kind of a topic that we want to give people time to think it through for themselves. But your story and your personal experiences have definitely encouraged people, give them food for thought. And maybe if I look at some of the takeaways, what stopped me and my tracks, and we were supposed to do a little bit of a wrap up, but I'll go ahead, put the carts before the horse, and I'll wrap up and say it anyway. What I was thinking, listening to your story, was this cutting the curb effect, in that when you do something and the initiative originates from a diversity, it might have far-reaching consequences for people that you didn't think there and then. So you are speaking for a broader audience than just for the original group of people that you had in mind.
Exactly.
Yeah. So with that, we thank you a lot, Kohsuke, again for coming online. And it was such a coincidence to have both Evelina online commenting on your speech as you were talking about it, and we also put the link to Jenkins configuration as a code into the chat, so people can go get acquainted more into the details. But we thank you for joining, and you have a wonderful day, Kohsuke.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
So we are coming up to the wrap up of the day.
Indeed, yes.
Time has definitely flied.